Motoring 2008 on TSN is brought to you by the new Q horsepower from Quaker State. Unleash all your horses. And Michelin, a better way forward.
Recently, we teamed up with the gang at CanadianDriver.com to stage the Hemi versus Hybrid Showdown. If you missed it, check out that episode on MotoringTV.com. This week, we've got 13 vehicles from 12 different manufacturers, and although they're different, they've got lots in common. First, they can all be purchased for under $20,000. They've got 4 cylinders, 4 doors, and with the odd exception, they come equipped with a 50-liter fuel tank. So what are we going to do, you ask? Well, with gas prices rising, and we're all trying to stretch that dollar and get their best fuel economy, what we're going to do is put 50 liters of fuel in each one of these vehicles, and we're going to drive them until we have the last tank standing. And we're calling it the 50-liter challenge.
You're not going to run out of gas until this afternoon, so the morning is it's going to be a pleasant drive. You're going to watch the gas gauge go down. Well, these are compact cars. It's a large segment in Canada. Most of the vehicles have a 50-liter gas tank, which is why we made it a 50-liter challenge. And the idea is to prove a couple of points. First of all, that if you drive a fuel-efficient car, then that's a good way to save money at the pump. And secondly, if you drive a car fuel efficiently, that's another thing the consumer can do to cut those high gas bills that we're all experiencing now. The drivers are going to rotate through the vehicles. We're going to stop about every 100 kilometers or so, and each person will move through the cars. We're going to stop about 8 times during the day, so everyone will drive at least 8 cars. When you finally run out of gas, you're going to be on a secondary highway. This whole afternoon is going to be on secondary highways, so you'll be able to pull over, put your 4-way flashers on. There's a 5-liter can of gas in every car, so you can put that in the car, and you can head for the nearest gas station and put some gas in the car and get you back here to Atwill's.
So who's going to have the winning car today?
I don't know, we'll see what happens.
Any hunches?
I think the Honda is going to take it again this time.
And you'll be driving it?
I hope so. I hope so.
The reason why we've done this is because a compact car represents an alternative to families. These cars seat 5 people, they hold lots of luggage. We think that this is the most fuel-efficient car in Canada available for Canadians, and also at a price that most Canadians can afford, under $20,000.
The convoy will begin in Ottawa, head east to Quebec, and then travel through southern Ontario, coming to about an hour just outside of Toronto, and then loop back to Ottawa. The estimated distance just over 1,000 kilometers. As for the rules, only one: no speeding. Although to make it real world, we'll drive at about 110 on the highways and when possible, 10 kilometers over the limit on secondary roads. Now, all the vehicles will have a GPS system that will give us the official odometer reading after they finally run out of fuel.
It's going to be a long day, probably around 1,000 kilometers. I'm going to enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to seeing, how far we can go on a 50-liter tank of gas.
We're going to have fist fights in the parking lot.
Why?
Everyone wants to drive the Mazda.
Why?
Apparently it's the sportiest one here, I think.
What do we drive right now?
Volkswagen City Golf.
How many kilometers have we done?
Done 86. And we're already down to a little above 3/4 of a tank. I think it's going to be imperative that people will have to find a fuel-efficient vehicle to drive as a daily driver. The price of gas is probably going to hit $2 by the end of this year. We have to do something to drive something that is more fuel-efficient.
Oh, I'm having a lot of fun. This is a Dodge Caliber. So far, so good. We're already seeing trends in the fuel consumption. This is a bigger vehicle, heavier, taller, and you can see that the gauge is starting to drop. So it really brings home to you, your fuel consumption is going to be a direct product of the size of vehicle that you have, even more probably than your driving style. But I know it's going to get more interesting a little later on.
Hook, line, and sinker? That's more like hook, line, and sucker. More later on Kenzie's Corner.
first generation was good enough it picked up one of motoring's coveted Car of the Year awards. This week on Test Drive, the second generation Mazda 6. The first thing that strikes you about the new Mazda 6 is the lineage it shares with the rest of the lineup, most notably the purposeful front fenders. They could have zoomed right off the RX-8. It is a classy looking car that backs up its bold presence with all the right safety equipment. The anti-lock brakes, which deliver short 39-metre stops, are backed up by a good traction control system on all models. The electronic stability control system, which does do a good job of staying out until it's actually needed, is also standard on all but the base model. Now come on, it should be standard fare across the board. The interior of the old Mazda 6 was very nice. This new vehicle ramps it up a notch or three. To begin with, if you go with the up-level model, leather seats, power moonroof, a very good audio system that comes with an auxiliary plug-in. You'll also find tilt and telescopic steering wheel adjustment. If you combine that with a fully articulated driver's seat, you have a large car that will accommodate a variety of different sized drivers. As a package, it all comes together very nicely indeed. Power comes from one of two engines. The base 2.5-litre four-cylinder puts out 170 horsepower and 167 pound-feet of torque, which is more than enough to haul the 6 around with alacrity. Accelerating to 100k, for example, takes about 9 seconds, which is not too shabby. The optional 5-speed automatic certainly helps matters, as it works well with the engine. The up-level 3.7-litre V6 ups the production to 272 horsepower and 269 pound-feet of torque. It not only shaves the acceleration time by about a second and a half, it comes with a 6-speed manumatic box. Now, if fuel economy is not paramount, this is going to be the powertrain of choice. The single biggest shortcoming with the outgoing car was rear seat room. This thing addresses it big time. To begin with, there's a 115mm stretch to the wheelbase. That brings limo-like legroom. It's also 60mm wider. That means you can actually put 3 adults in the back here and they won't whine too much. The bottom line, this back seat is now the most accommodating in the segment. The first Mazda 6's most likeable trait was its ability to carve a corner. The second generation continues the tradition. In spite of its expanded dimensions, it still danced its way through the pylons. The credit goes to several things. First, the chassis is stiffer, 39% better in bending and 17% stiffer torsionally. This gives the suspension a solid base of operations and the ability to control body motion. The oversized 235/45 R18 tyres then provide the required grip. The net result is very little body roll, understeer that stays at arm's length, and the response to steering input is fast without feeling twitchy. The upside is that the 6 manages to handle without giving up on the comfort side of the ledger. Not only do you get more space inside the Mazda 6, you also get more trunk space. 39 litres more than the outgoing car. You'll also find 70/30 split folding rear seats, which allows you to carry longer items. The limiting factor? The opening is a little narrow, and so it means you're not going to put a big box in there. There is, however, a problem. When the trunk is closed, there's only 2 ways of opening it. You use the key fob or a button on the dash. The problem is, both require electricity. Now, if you happen to get locked in the trunk, not a problem. There's an emergency release handle. If you're outside the trunk and wanting in, without the use of electricity, you ain't getting in. Not in a hurry, anyway. Mystery solved. It turns out that there is a release lever beneath the cover of the right rear upper child seat tether point. So if the battery does die, you can use this hidden lever to gain access to the trunk and of course the needed booster cables. I hope the dealers point this out when they deliver the car, because it'll save a mess of time and many red faces. This latest car represents a quantum leap over the vehicle it replaces. It's more comfortable, more accommodating, there's better powertrains. However, the bit that seals the deal for me is the fact that in spite of the increased dimensions, this car feels as tight and as compact and nimble as the outgoing vehicle. The net result, you can indeed have a family car and a sports car in one package. It's called the Mazda 6.
Okay, we're just under the 400-kilometer mark as we continue with our 50-liter challenge with CanadianDriver.com. This is the way things look right now. The Dodge Caliber has only a quarter tank of gas remaining, but remember, it's the heaviest vehicle here. The lightest vehicle is the Honda Civic, and it's leading right now along with the Ford Focus and the Toyota Corolla. So everybody is doing what they can do to get every kilometer out of that gallon of gasoline. But you know, our man in the Quaker State Garage, Bill Gardiner, as we all know, has had a long love affair with those big pickup trucks. Now, despite rising fuel prices, I know Bill's not going to throw away the pickup, but I wonder if he's thinking about fuel economy. How about it, Bill?
Well, Brad, that love affair with the pickup trucks is on the rocks right now with $1.30 plus a liter fuel. I'll tell you, you got to think twice about when and where you drive that pickup truck. Kind of takes me back to the early 90s. So I had a Honda Civic Si then and the pickup. And you know, if it was a long run out of town, that little hatchback car could swallow a lot of equipment. Maybe not as much as the pickup truck, but it would take some pretty big stuff. You could put a lawnmower in the back and a chainsaw and a few cases of oil and an outboard motor and quite a bit of stuff. And 50 miles per gallon, well, the pickup truck could never get that territory. So, you know, you had to think twice, and it's come back to that now. The cars are getting great fuel economy, and the pickup trucks, because the horsepower race is alive and well in the pickup truck sector, the fuel economy on the trucks has really taken a nosedive the last few years. Just think about it, like early to mid 90s, a 5.7 liter V8 in a pickup was around 190 to 200 horsepower. Now a 5.7 liter V8 in a pickup is 380 horsepower. Smoke the tires off the line, but won't pass the gas station. So, you know, something's got to happen. Now, when we look at the current crop of small or compact sized pickup trucks, they've gotten a whole lot better in the last few years. The Dodge Dakota just to my right, great 4.7 liter V8. I love the powertrain in the Dakota. It'll tow over 7,000 pounds. So if you've got a boat or some kind of a serious trailer that you're hauling for recreational or for work, that truck will do the job. Really comfortable. Even a tall person is quite comfortable in that truck. And much better fuel economy than those big trucks. The big trucks have gotten so big lately, they've gotten so overblown. They're very capable, but in a lot of cases, they're a lot more truck than many guys need to do the job. So if you're buying a truck basically as a second car or for light duty or recreational use, you want to look at some of these smaller trucks. The GM Canyon in Colorado, that's this truck right here. They've got a 2.9 four-cylinder or a 3.7 inline 5-cylinder engine, obviously capable of much better fuel economy than the big trucks. Nissan, for example, with their Frontier truck have a 2.5 four-cylinder or a 4-liter V6. Toyota with their Tacoma have a 4-cylinder and a 4-liter V6 as well in their trucks. Very capable truck as well. Some other great trucks in that segment too, the Honda Ridgeline, you know, kind of cross between a full-size and a compact-size truck. Probably the Swiss Army knife of pickup trucks is what I call the Ridgeline. V6 engine, much better fuel economy too. So these are some choices you've got. If you're looking, you know, some guys just buy a full-size truck because it's cool to have that big, powerful truck, but they really don't use it. And those are the guys that have got to start thinking twice with fuel at the price it is today. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardiner for Motoring 2008.
This car is amazing, 507 kilometers, and we still have more than half a tank of fuel left.
So the Toyota Corolla right now is surprising a lot of people. Right behind it, though, as far as the amount of fuel it has left in it, is the Honda Civic. At the other end is the Dodge Caliber and the Suzuki SX4. Both their fuel lights are on. But also remember, the Dodge Caliber is the heaviest car in the bunch. But the big sleeper so far is the Hyundai Elantra. It has as much fuel left in its tank as does the Honda Civic. Remember, the Civic and the Corolla have 1.8 liter engines. The Elantra has a 2-liter engine.
So what was the total? 677. The gas light came on at 494 and it finally ran out at 677. Just blows me away.
Okay, we're slowing down. I just turned the four-way flashers on and that's it. There's no more on the gas pedal. Oh, there it caught for a second. It downshifted. No, we're not going to make it any further.
How many kilometers?
It's 674 kilometers.
There goes the Honda Civic.
Driving the Pontiac 5. Fuel status is unknown and we've got 763 kilometers.
What's impressed you about this day and so far?
I'm amazed how far a car can go with a full tank of gas.
We're in Renfrew at the Tim Hortons, and the Elantra's made it all the way, 782 kilometers. The gas gauge is showing below empty, and the car's still running. So it's pretty impressive for a company that's not necessarily known for its fuel economy, but it's done all right.
So the Hyundai Elantra and the Pontiac Vibe continue to impress everyone, but the rest of the field is shrinking and shrinking quickly. Who's going to be the last car standing? Well, we'll find out when we return as our 50-liter challenge continues.
Closed captioning of Motoring 2008 is brought to you by the totally new Chevrolet Malibu, 2008 North American Car of the Year.
Back about 1,000 years ago, well, it seems like that long ago, I was the editor of something called Car Guide magazine, and we do an annual edition that listed specifications and prices of every car sold in Canada. Now, we also did a sister publication called Boat Guide, which did the same thing for pleasure boats. Now, one day I took a look at this magazine, and there was like a 16-foot fishing boat there, and it's basically a sheet of aluminum. You do the origami thing so it's pointy at one end and blunt at the other. You glue a couple of pieces of styrofoam on for seats, pop rivet a chunk of plexiglass on the front, and presto, there's your fishing boat. $16,000. I couldn't believe it. Oh, would you like a motor for that, sir? That'll be another $6,000 for 40 horsepower. Are you kidding me? Back in those days, you could get a pretty nice car for $10,000. The wonders of mass production. Well, guess what? You can still get a pretty nice car for $10,000 in this country, because this is the Hyundai Accent two-door hatchback. Now, I'm not taking over for Graham and Road Test here. I just want to show you some of the features you can get for a pretty good price. Now, it is an entry-level car, but hey, it's got your reclining seats, it's got a split folding back seat, it's got an AM/FM stereo CD player with an aux input for your iPod. Even the Bentley Continental doesn't give you that. It's got your tilt steering column, and it's not a bad little car. It's way better than the original Accent was back in the 1990s, and it's not that much more expensive. Now, this particular puppy happens to have air conditioning, which is an option, but the point is, for around $10,000 out the door, you can still get a pretty nice car. The price of that fishing boat today, you don't even want to know. I'm Jim Kenzie.
We started with 13 vehicles, each vehicle with exactly 50 liters of gas. We've been traveling for over 13 hours and about 800 kilometers. We're now down to the final 4, and they are the Hyundai Elantra. Many are calling this the sleeper. It's still going, but the fuel light has been on for over 100 kilometers. The same could be said for the Pontiac Vibe. Both these vehicles are really breathing on nothing but fumes. The favorite right now has to be the Toyota Corolla. It has just under a quarter of a tank of gas, followed by the Honda Civic. It has a little less. So soon we're going to find out which car will be standing at the end.
I'm really surprised that this Vibe has gone as far as it has, but the bigger surprise is the Elantra, just ahead of us. I don't know how it can be going so far, it just is. I still think the Honda is probably going to beat the Corolla out, but both of them are remarkable cars. Yeah, they're right behind us. Grant's out of fuel. Well, I don't believe it. I thought the Vibe would run out of fuel first. We beat the Elantra.
809 kilometers.
Are you surprised?
Yeah, a bit, but you know, 800 kilometers for a compact car is what we can expect these days. This one went a little bit further. Hyundai should be proud of it.
And as the sun sets, we are down to 3, the Honda Civic, Toyota Corolla, and the Pontiac Vibe.
Well, we're at 792 kilometers. The needle's 2 needle widths below empty. Fuel light's been on forever, and I'm pushing the Honda and the Toyota. You know, actually I should have them out in front so I could draft. I might be able to beat them if I did that, but otherwise I think it's going to be pretty tough.
But try as it may, the Vibe finally runs dry.
Oh, there you go. Honda's out. Toyota's the winner.
So the Honda Civic finally takes its last breath, and the Toyota Corolla is our last car standing. How long will it go? I'll give you all those figures in just a moment. But as you know, the hot button these days is alternative fuels and hybrids. And of course, you can buy a hybrid in the showroom these days, but remember, it's evolving technology. Did I hear somebody say beta versus VHS? And yes, the technology will come, but you know what? We don't have to wait that long. Thanks to high gas prices, people are looking to smaller vehicles. And today, we saw 13 different vehicles, good-looking design, comfortable inside. And I can attest to that because we've been driving for over 18 hours. And they went up to 1,000 kilometers on 50 liters of gas. And as far as emissions go, they're almost emission-free. So the bottom line is, as my dad once said, sometimes the answer is right in front of your nose. That's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
The particulate matter, the soot, the black stuff that diesels are so well known for in the past, the measurement is just a baby's breath away from what California considers a zero-emission vehicle. That's those vehicles out here today.
Motoring 2008 on TSN has been brought to you by the new Q horsepower from Quaker State. Unleash all your horses. And Michelin, a better way forward.